Come on in, welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're talking about 5 random Survivor players that Jeff Probst really loves. Sure, his love of Boston Rob, Colby, and Cochran is well documented. You can just see how his face lights up whenever he's basking in their warm, glowing, warming glow. But like all of us, Jeff also has his random faves, first boots, pre-mergers, and entire casts that he speaks lovingly about, sometimes as long as a decade after they've played the game. Now, I don't profess to know Jeff's every thought. I didn't steal his diary, so I can only really go off of his public statements, and as a producer, he's sometimes tight-lipped about a lot of this sort of stuff, especially nowadays. So this is by no means an exhaustive list of Jeff's random faves. For all I know, he could be the world's biggest Nick Stanberry fan and just hasn't shared that publicly yet. Someday he might, but not today. Some of them are his friends, some of them are just random people he really likes. All of them seem like names pulled out of a hat. Here are 5 really random players Jeff Probst is on the record as liking an awful lot. At number 5 is RC from Survivor Philippines. Jeff has stated repeatedly how much he likes RC, and the show's pursued her for a second shot at least twice. After her season, Jeff spoke warmly about her on social media and in interviews, particularly in relation to her potential returns in both Blood vs. Water and Second Chance. RC and her father Craig were literally on the cast of Blood vs. Water, but had to drop out at the last minute when Craig had a medical issue come up. It was well known at the time that Candace and John were the last-second replacements for RC and her old man, so a lot of the pre-game press focused on that. In interviews, Jeff spoke fondly of her at every turn, repeatedly saying that they love her and they want her to come back and play again, for quote, obvious reasons. Now, one can argue that Jeff was in producer mode and just hyping the season, and I'm sure that is part of the story, but his tone in these interviews comes off as super disappointed that she couldn't play. He seems convinced that she was going to be a great addition to the Blood vs. Water cast. Survivor believed in RC so much that they pursued her again for Second Chance, but she'll forever be the one that got away, as she declined her second shot. In a 2015 tweet, Jeff said it was sad that she turned them down, but that they understood why. That reason why? Jeff speculates is because RC simply didn't want to play with Abby Maria again, who was on the ballot and seemed pretty likely to get voted on to the cast. I'm not sure why RC wouldn't want to play with Abby again. They had such a cordial relationship.
I haven't lied to you, and you have no reason to think that I would lie to you.
I am your friend.
Me too.
But if you don't want your dad.
Survivor's undoubtedly had some extremely random returnees before. RC wouldn't even be the most random person on Blood vs. Water had she made it on. But Jeff's tireless pursuit for her has always seemed a bit strange to me. Perhaps it's the feeling of a Wentworth-esque unfulfilled potential. Perhaps they feel she simply brings the drama. Perhaps they just really love that harmonious laugh. At number 4 is Andrew Savage from Survivor Pearl Islands, a longtime Probst favorite. This would have seemed like a more out there pick before Second Chance, where Savage was easily one of the breakout stars of the season, but Jeff's been a Savage stan since day one. Sometime after Pearl Islands, Jeff and Savage became personal friends, and Jeff name-dropped Savage as a player he'd like to see return in a 2012 interview with Gordon Holmes. Jeff's justification? Survivor screwed over Savage so badly with the Outcast twist, which brought eliminated players back into the game for the first time ever, that Andrew deserves a second shot. Not that Jeff was considering the nuts and bolts of a Pearl Islands post-merge that had Sean and Austin there instead of Burton and Lil, but I do think there's an argument to be made that Savage not only goes deep in Pearl Islands, but potentially wins if Lil doesn't come back with a Scoutmaster's vengeance. Sean probably wasn't going to be sticking around with the Drake tribe. Well, Jeff would get his wish of a Savage return when he was on the Second Chance ballot, and even improved his odds a little bit by buying ad space on the Second Chance voting website. Absolute legend. The friendship between Jeff and Savage was a genuine fear for many of the Second Chance players, many of whom mentioned it in pre-game press and were worried that Savage might potentially be treated favorably. But you know what, guys? Jeff's a pro. Their relationship had no effect on the gameplay or outcome of the season. You know how I know that? A true friend would step in to stop someone from dressing like this, unless they were contract bound not to. At number 3 is the entire cast from Survivor Worlds Apart. This may be Jeff's hottest take ever, his love of Worlds Apart, and in particular, the cast. Of course, it's Jeff's job to hype seasons before they air, but he was particularly high on Worlds Apart, saying, quote, "Person for person and pound for pound, this is the best group of people I think we've ever had." Yeah, there are hot takes and then there are nuclear takes. Now, it's reasonable to assume that Jeff was only saying this to get us to tune into the show. I mean, it's his job as a producer and host. But there are two things that make me believe that Jeff really does love this cast to an unreasonable degree. The first is that following the relatively lukewarm reception to this season, Jeff would majorly turn down the hyperbole when hyping future newbie seasons. Number 2 would be Tyler's quarantine questionnaire with Dalton Ross. According to Tyler, who seems like a perfectly reliable source to me, at the Worlds Apart Final Tribal Council, Jeff said that if he could bring any cast in the history of the show to play again in a brand new season, it would be the Worlds Apart cast. And then he apparently did a "we're not worthy" bow towards the jury. Because he was watching the season unfold in real time, I do see how Jeff was enamored with the season as a whole. Pre-merge had a lot of great blindsides. Post-merge had a satisfying and exciting underdog story of Mike overcoming incredible odds to win, but the season just didn't translate into the TV product that I think Jeff was expecting. And let's be honest, this cast really isn't anything to write home about.
Look at it! What else is gonna fit in there, Miss Greedy Ass? All you've been doing is running your damn mouth!
Still, they managed to get 4 returnees from this season and 2 additional potential returnees that didn't even make it onto Cambodia, proving that Survivor and I have at least one thing in common. We can both squeeze a whole lot of blood from any stone. At number 2 is Gina from Survivor Marquesas. Now, I personally quite enjoy Survivor Marquesas, but it's clear that Jeff and the producers actively dislike it, largely for its notoriously difficult production, and a Final 2 that I think the producers thought was pretty underwhelming. In fact, in a pre-Heroes vs. Villains ranking of the first 19 seasons of Survivor, Jeff ranked Marquesas at 18, beating out only Survivor Thailand. Gina is clearly one of only 3 Survivor Marquesas castaways the production team ever cared for at all. Obviously, there's Kathy, but can you guess the other one? Yep, you got it. Patricia. Jeff has glowingly spoken about Gina over the years whenever potential returnees come up, and it sounds like he and Gina were at least somewhat in touch in the years following her season, as she made the necklace he wore in Survivor Samoa. So I'm inclined to believe she's one of those elite Survivor players who upgraded from player to personal friend. There have long been rumors that Jeff and Gina dated, but I've never seen that corroborated, and it seems to be based on an assumption that Jeff has a thing for brunettes. Which, well, I do think is true. At most, I think he might have had a schoolboy crush on her, and even if they did date, it's not really our business anyway. Still, at least at the time, Gina was a clear production favorite, and the stats back that up. Even after 40 seasons of Survivor, Gina still holds the record for most confessionals of any pre-merge boot ever, with a whopping 37 confessionals, and that's including returnee seasons. While it's obviously pretty unlikely that we ever see Gina on Survivor again, I think it's lovely that Jeff's still out there bringing up random pre-merge boots from 2002. So never feel bad for standing Rourke or Benry or whatever randos you pulled out of a hat and decided to love. Jeff does it too. The most random Survivor player that Jeff Probst really likes is Jessica from Survivor Fiji. In a 2012 interview, Jeff was asked by Gordon Holmes who he'd like to see return to play the game. Now, in all fairness, I think he was trying to resist the urge to say Colby or Boston Rob, so he pulled out some popular players from seasons past who hadn't yet played again, like Terry and Shambo. He also name-dropped Jessica DeBen, the first boot from Survivor Fiji, a first boot so random I didn't even put her on my list of the 10 greatest first boots. And yet here she is, getting listed by Jeff some 5 years after her season aired, as a person who deserves to play again. Now, I'm not trying to rag on Jessica or anything, she seems like a lovely woman. but she is probably one of the least developed first boots in Survivor history. She was in an alliance with Rocky and Erica, she got blamed for the challenge loss, then she was voted out. We don't really see much or learn much about her at all. I've actually compiled Jessica's greatest hits right here. Here she is carrying wood, here she is watching Earl and Rocky talk, here she is giving a soon-to-be ironic confessional.
I feel good now that I know it's not me.
That's it. Now, obviously, Jeff's getting outvoted in the pitch room because they could have brought Jessica back for a second chance in, well, second chance, or even for game changers. I mean, being the first person voted out in a season with an odd number of players is arguably just as game changing, or perhaps even more game changing than anything Sierra or Troyzan did. But that's not all. In a Reddit AMA that took place during Cagayan, way down at the bottom, past a bunch of unanswered questions, lay a question asking Jeff directly if Jessica will ever return. His response, "I love Jessica." CBS, throw the man a bone here. Let's get Jessica back. I'm here for the debenaissance. Got nothing else for ya. To help me be a random fave of the YouTube algorithm, like and subscribe and I'll get you more Survivor content just like this. Until next time, don't get idled out.